There's one other story I want to tell, and that is I feel like I was destined to meet Martin. It's funny, but I was a fan of the horse races. I was not a big gambler like Martin, but Martin was the high roller in Vegas, the stock trader. He borrowed on margin to trade stocks. When I found out about the margin, I freaked out. I knew nothing about what trading on a margin was, and I was this young wife, and we were a little short on cash at that point, and it scared me. But before I met Martin, I did love math and was pretty broke at that time, and was going to the horse races and betting on this system I had created. I actually figured out from studying the numbers that the ninth race was always won by a long shot. So I would bet on all the long shots in the ninth race, and the odds were that over time, statistically, I would make money. And there were other races. I figured out this pattern of, like, the eighth race was always a favorite at Santa Anita. So I also figured out a mathematical equation to adjust my bets based on if I won or lost, to make back the money I made plus a profit on the next bet, which I guess is a algebraic formula that was invented by someone else, but I came up with it myself. So I was pretty proud of it. So I'd go to the races with my friend Jenny and try to make a few bucks. And I was pretty successful, but to me, pretty successful is like, oh, I made $100 today, you know, betting $10 a race or whatever. So me and Jenny go to the races, and we sit in the clubhouse, which is the best part of the racetrack, where they have like a little restaurant. And we didn't really have seats in the clubhouse, but we paid a little extra to get admission to the clubhouse. And we're watching the races, and the favorite wins on the eighth race, and she wants to go, and I said, no, the ninth race is really the best. I always make money on the ninth race. I bet on horses with odds between about 5 and 9, and I don't bet on horses with 99-1 odds, because they're definitely never going to win, right? So I placed my bets on these 5 or 6 horses, and I'm sure I'm going to win something. It's kind of a downer that I'm not using psychic abilities to pick the horses, but I'm figuring, okay, I'm going to make money on this. So we're watching the race. It's a little exciting, but not as exciting as if I had picked one horse and was like really rooting for it, right? So we're watching horses go around, and one of my horses in the lead. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, and everybody's in the whole place is screaming, you know, cheering on their horses, and it's just this huge roar of thousands of people. And the horses are coming around, and all of a sudden this one horse starts pulling ahead, and I hear this weird sort of oh from the whole crowd, and this horse pulls out ahead and beats all the other horses, and there's like this dead silence in the whole place, except for these 4 or 5 guys down on the front right by the corner jumping up and down like, we won, and they're looking super happy. And the entire place was silent. Like, everyone in the place lost except these 5 guys down in the corner. And I didn't bet on that horse because it was 99-1 odds, which means that if they bet $1,000, they won like $100,000. Yeah. So we look at these guys down there jumping up and down, and I said, I wish I was one of them. Look how much fun they're having. It wasn't so much that they won the money. They just looked like they were having so much fun. So years later, I have my commemorative cup from the 8th race that day. By paying for admission to the clubhouse, I got a commemorative Santa Anita Derby cup. So I go to Martin's house, and he has a cup on his shelf from the same day. So I said, Martin, were you there that day? Do you remember the 9th race? And he says, oh yeah. I said, do you remember how everybody was silent and just that little handful of guys down there was jumping up and down super happy? He said, yeah, that was me. That was his horse. He had a horse that would win sometimes and lose sometimes, and it was completely unpredictable. And he showed me all his pictures of him and his friend, and they owned that horse that won that day. So I felt like we were destined to meet when I saw that we were there in the same day, and I had wished to be with him and his friend, and then sure enough, that's what I got. So years later, the day I met him, he asked me to go with him to Vegas on an airplane. And of course I said no, because I felt like, that was too much out of a movie. I was afraid, number one, that I'd get seduced by his money, and I wanted to find out who he was. But second of all, it was a stranger inviting me to go somewhere on an airplane, and I felt a little awkward about that. So instead he said, well, let's go to the horse races, because we were talking and we realized we both liked horse races. I'm going back in time. This is before I knew he had been at the Santa Anita Derby the day that I wished to be with him. So we go to the races, and we sit in a box in the clubhouse, and we're both betting, and I'm using my mathematical system. And I've had times where I've been to the races and I've seen a horse step out on the track, and it looks like it has a halo around its head. It like prances out there, and it just looks like it's gonna win. I know that horse is gonna win. I've had those moments. But now I'm like trying to make money, so I have this mathematical system I'm sticking to, and I'm like, you just wait and see, I'm gonna make a lot of money today. Of course, I didn't make any money that day. Meanwhile, Martin is betting trifectas, which is where you pick the winner, who's gonna come in second, and who's gonna come in third. And he's winning. And he's showing me how he looks in the race book, and he calculates the if they close faster than they run in the beginning, and he's explaining to me how he's picking these horses. And then he wins another trifecta and another trifecta, and it pays something like 200 to 1. So he wins 5 trifectas in a row. This is how lucky Martin was. But I do want to say that I thought about this, about how could you fake that if you were trying to impress a girl, and there is a way you could fake that. But the fact that he was willing to do that, even if he did fake winning 5 trifectas, he'd show me the tickets. So basically, the only way you could fake that is by buying a ticket for every possible combination of horse. But somehow he won 5 trifectas in a row. I'll never forget it. So he was either the luckiest man or really wanted to impress me. Okay, so after Martin died, I got this cash, and I mentioned in a previous video I had this sort of evil second husband. Well, at the time I didn't know he was evil. I had this cash, and he said, you have to learn how to trade on the stock market. And I really did not want to learn, but he insisted. So I studied the stock market. I came up with a mathematical system, and then I started using my instincts more, and I became a gambler on the stock market. We would go to Vegas. I didn't know it, but my second husband was he had a coach trying to tell him how to live his lifestyle with me for the first couple of years so that he could divorce me and get all my money. So basically, he was trying to get us to develop a lifestyle where we were spending money on vacations. He said, we have to spend $10,000 on vacations every year. I was like, why? Well, it's because he was trying to establish that we had a certain kind of lifestyle so he could demand that I support him after he divorced me. That was his plan. I didn't know that. So we would go to Las Vegas, and I would go down at night, and I would gamble on blackjack. And I combined the mathematical equations I'd come up with and my instincts. Like, sometimes I just knew what a card was, and I would bet more. So I would make a lot of money gambling. So I will never forget one time I went down with, I think, $1,000, and I came back upstairs, and he said, did you win? And I said, all I have left is this one brown chip. And brown is $10,000. So basically I went down with 1,000 and I came back up with 10,000. And I said, I'm quitting. I got $10,000. That was my goal. So I used to be a gambler in Vegas a lot, because we'd go a lot. And they started giving me free hotel rooms and free baskets of fruit whenever we'd go. And I'd always bring the kids, I'd watch the kids, and then I'd go down at night and gamble. So I became sort of like Martin. I was trading stocks. I was using trading, I was gambling, and I was getting better and better at it, and I was getting more and more lucky. And my ex-husband asked me to write down what I was doing. He said, you have a mathematical formula, put it on paper. Well, he wanted to get my formula, but it wasn't really a formula in the end. It was more like instinct and experience. And it was this other thing that was like, I would get messages basically telling me if I was doing the right thing or not. So it started off where I'd just get like a message in my head like this is the right thing to do, go for it. But it was kind of hard to believe in myself. So then I started relying on this app on my phone. It's a Turo app where I'd kind of ask, am I doing the right thing? And I'd pull a card and it would say either, you know, disaster, war, death, the tower, or it would say, you know, the lovers, the cups, peace, you know, stars. Lots of stars means I'm gonna make money on it. And I started feeling like I was getting like support from this Turo app on my phone. And then when my dad died, I started getting messages like, be conservative, don't gamble. Because my dad was an accountant and didn't believe in gambling. Martin was the gambler. And so then I was getting like 2 sets of messages on my Turo app. I would get one that said go for it, and then I'd get another one that said stop gambling. And I started getting confused. So then I went out and I was on one Halloween, I and my daughter saw this Ouija board in the window of the store. It was like a 1961 Ouija board. And that was the year I was born, and I felt like that was a sign. I was like, oh, I have to get this Ouija board, and it'll be easier to talk to Martin, right? After I got the Ouija board, I started getting all kinds of weird messages, like confusing me. And before I got the Ouija board, I asked the Tarot cards, who is this? And I got the card for the father. So I figured it was Martin, but then I thought about it. I thought, well, my dad is the father. And then I thought, well, maybe it's God saying the Holy Father. So I didn't really know who was talking to me. But after I got the Ouija board, I really didn't know who was talking to me. I'd start getting messages. First of all, we tried the Ouija board once. It was really spooky and we put it away, but I didn't put it away right. You're supposed to wrap the planchette in a cloth, and we didn't do it right. So I really didn't know who was talking to me. It was always about the money with my ex, but it was also always about the money with me and the messages I was getting from Martin. Because I was always trying to pay for the house. I was always trying to pay for the schools for my kids. And the things that would happen were items would appear in our house. Items that were worth money would appear when I needed money. Or I'd get messages about the stock market. I'd get messages about whether it was the right time to buy and what to buy. So that's why I kind of feel like it was coming from Martin, because it was always supporting the family. So this house that I was trying to save meant a lot to me, and it meant a lot because it had memories of Martin. It meant a lot because it was worth a lot. It meant a lot because it was the last thing that I would not sign over to my ex-husband, my second husband. I kept feeling like my second husband was trying to kill me near the end. And I felt like if I signed over that last one thing, he'd have no reason to keep me alive. He kept trying to get me to sign over the house. And that was the one thing I thought, if I never sign this house over to him, he won't be able to kill me because he'll need me to sign it over before he does.